Cowabunga, and welcome back to the Rediscover the 80s podcast and another episode of Rankum, where we count down your favorites from the 80s. I am your host, Jason Gross, and I'm proud to welcome back as my special guest for this podcast, all the way from Dimension X, or maybe California. It is Brian Cave of OldSchoolEvil.com. How are you, Brian?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well. Glad you are here. And I guess the listeners by now would, if they've read the title of the episode, would know our subject for tonight, which is our favorite episodes from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle animated series. And Brian is actually the inspiration behind the show because all month long he has been hosting, I don't even know how to pronounce this, but it's SepTMNTber with TMNT.
It comes across a lot better in type than in
right. Right. So anyway, he threw TMNT in the middle of September, and he's been doing little tributes and reviews and everything over on his website. So tell us a little bit about why you wanted to do that on your blog there, Brian.
Well, this month Nickelodeon is releasing their newest video, or the newest series, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I thought it would be a really good opportunity to go through the entire history of, I didn't go into comics. I never have read the comics, but all the cartoons and movies and everything that have come out in their, 35-year history now almost. So,
right.
So I've gone through 6 or 7 movies now and 5 different TV shows, cartoons, live. So it's been a busy month.
Yes. And I've been trying to follow along and getting your opinions on some of those movies, mainly the newer ones, which I was interested in because I don't know. I think maybe I'm in the minority on there where I can kind of stand, well, the second one more than the first one in the last couple of years. But I'm always curious to see what other people think of those I guess you'd call them Michael Bay movies.
Pretty much.
Because, it was Bayed, quote unquote. But I don't know. There were still some elements in there that I thought were great that they left or I guess maybe carried over from the history of the show. So.
Yeah, I just finally watched that Out of the Shadows movie last night. And I'm not going to have my review up until Thursday, but overall, I mean, it wasn't as bad as the previous movie, but still had major problems. So.
Yeah. Well, most movies that try to they get remade, or if you put Michael Bay name to it, they usually get flushed down the toilet pretty quickly. And some people will even take the plunger, and plunge it a couple of times just to make sure it's gone. But anyway, we are here to actually talk about the original series, which ran from 1987 to 1996, 10 seasons and 193 episodes. Pretty amazing. Right. So just as a little icebreaker before we get into our top 5 episodes, what do you remember as a kid about the show? Is there a specific time that you remember encountering it for the first time, or was it a staple? Or
I'm not sure when I saw the very first episode, but I do remember watching it pretty much from its inception. I was a big Transformers fan before this, but when this cartoon came out, it took over everything that I was watching at the time. I never collected a lot of the toys. My parents didn't have a lot of money to throw at plastic, but I was a member of the Teenage Mutant Turtles fan club. Came with a little bandana and letters and stuff like that. I wrote an actual letter to the producer, the manufacturer of the toys, because I wanted to know about different toys that were coming out and everything. I mean, I was obsessed with this cartoon for a good while. And I remember my friend and I, around the time this cartoon came out, we were trying to write comics about like half human, half dogs, and half human, half cats and everything, just going on stupid adventures. But Yeah, Ninja Turtles was my life from about like 86 to 89. It was crazy.
Well, I remember watching it primarily at a friend's house, and it would have been before it transferred over to CBS in their Saturday morning show. It was back when it was still in syndication, because I remember going over to his house, like in the afternoons after school, and watching the show, and uh, mainly playing the NES game. I don't know
Oh
how
yeah.
many hours we put into just learning everything we could about the game. I think we might have even had a Nintendo Power nearby, just to get all the cheats and figure out which building and where you can rescue the turtles and how to get past the dam. And
Oh yeah, yeah. So many lives spent in that electric seaweed.
But yes, I remember watching it. I don't remember having, like you, a lot of the toys. um it was mainly my friend when I'd go over to his house, and we would kind of play with them, and had a lot of the action figures.
Now,
And
which ones
so
did you have?
I'm sorry.
Did you have any of the toys at all, or was
I
it just all
don't
the fun?
I don't specifically remember like going to the store and asking for a Michelangelo or something. I think I did have a couple, but it was mainly, I think, going over to my friend's house and playing with his stuff, because he was over the top for the Turtles.
Oh
So
yeah.
it didn't really sink in, and I've never really gone back and watched, seasons of the show. I've watched quite a few, but even the later ones, what they call what is it, the Red Sky seasons. I've,
Oh yeah.
I've never gone into that deep of the turtle lore and watched the show. I guess maybe it got a little darker during those last couple seasons or something. But the
I
first three
remember.
seasons, which was the bulk of those, like 193, it might have been close to 100 in those first three seasons. I remember mainly watching those more than later in the 90s.
I remember catching a few of the later, like the last season of it, while it was on TV. Like I would be flipping channels and see it, and you'd see them mutate into bigger, uglier turtles and fight some space dragon. It was insane. And I was like, this is not what I grew up on. So I didn't stick around for those very long.
Yeah, so even at that time, then you could say, it was not, it had morphed into something totally different than what it was when it first came out and was fresh.
Oh yeah.
And remember. So yeah, it was, I mean, a terrific show. And I thought it might be fun to kind of go through and talk about some of the characters. Did you have a favorite character on the show?
I was always a Raph fan. I love the his attitude, of course. So he's cool but rude.
Uh-huh.
So I hated Michelangelo, just I think mainly because he was my brother's favorite and me and him never agreed on anything. So he epitomized the whole party guy, and I just wanted nothing to do with that either. So what about you?
I was a Michelangelo person, definitely. I, I
No.
always I always thought he had like the crappiest weapon though. I never liked the nunchucks. I always wanted the swords or the bow staff. Even the size were a little bit better than just swinging those nunchucks around. At least that was my opinion. But I
Was it
loved
better
his,
or worse when he got the grappling hook?
maybe a little bit better, but I was mainly into just his attitude and that almost like Bill and Ted, cowabunga, and just the party dude that was Michelangelo, and the crazy pizzas that he would come up with. I don't know. I just loved everything about him. He was just fun,
Oh,
and more of the the comic relief of the group than the
yeah.
other ones that had more of like a sharper wit, like Raph or even Leonardo. When they were funny, they were always like, okay, shut up, Michelangelo, and let's actually get something done.
Oh yeah.
But I don't
As,
know, he was always my favorite turtle.
as you've gotten older, has he still your favorite, or has it changed at all?
No, it's been pretty much him the whole time. Even up through, I remember watching the first two movies in the theater, and the pizza dude's got 30 seconds, and he's just I don't know. He still somehow the personality managed to transfer into those movies. I think he was it Corey Feldman that did his voice in the movies?
Donatello, Robbie Rist did Michelangelo.
Okay, Rob. Okay, yes, that's right. I knew Feldman had done one of the voices, but I don't know. I still felt that transition from the cartoon to the movies, and I loved the movies. You know, when they came out, they were, the epitome of great. But it's a little bit rough going back now, I think, and watching, at least from my perspective. But
yeah, I mean, it's still the best movies we've gotten. I mean, can't argue that.
Right. But yeah, so just kind of going through the characters, and there was such a great voice cast that came together for this show and lasted, almost through all of the episodes. We had the same voices for the same characters. There's a few little places where I'm not sure the backstory behind it, where some voice actors took over for, a few people for a couple episodes there.
Mm-hmm.
But Cam Clark, who played He-Man and Prince Adam in the 2002 Masters Universe reboot, and he was in Robotech and even the Akira film. He was the English dub in that.
I did not know that.
Yes, and he was the main character, I believe, Kaneda, in the Akira film.
I must have seen like a later dub when they had Johnny Young Bosch from the Power Rangers doing his voice.
At least that's what my research was showing. And then he was also Liquid Snake in the Metal Gear Solid gaming franchise.
Awesome.
Kind of stuck out to me as well. But Cam Clark, he's most of these guys have a long history in voice acting. And so he was Leonardo, and he was also Rocksteady and several other supporting characters. And then Raphael was Rob Paulson. I've actually had the chance to meet Rob Paulson at RetroCon last year. Got to chat with him a little bit. Very personal guy from Michigan. So me being from Pennsylvania, we talked a little football there, Michigan versus Penn State. That was fun to talk to him. But he was Raphael. And then it's interesting that, in 2012, when the Nickelodeon series came about, he came back, but as Donatello, not the same.
That was something I had a major problem with, just because, I only heard Raphael when Donatello was talking. But,
yeah, that was kind of strange. And I'm his voice is, you'd think he has control of it enough to maybe change it a little bit from the way he did Raphael back then. But, just hearing him, you can still pull him out, and I can see making that connection to Raphael more than Donatello, which he played in the series.
I don't know if you saw like the that 2012 series had a episode called Transdimensional Turtles, where they met up with the original
Ninja
Turtles.
Yes, I've not seen it, but
so
I have seen that they did that episode, but I have not watched it.
That one's pretty good, and it's the only one really kind of worth watching, I thought. So, but yeah, I love that they had the callback to Raphael and him sharing the same voice actor.
Yeah, that was great. He was also Zach the Fifth Turtle, if you remember those episodes. And then I think it was a couple episodes he did the Fifth Turtle, Zach, and then Zenter of the Neutrinos.
Oh, okay.
But he was also Pinky from Pinky and the Brain, and he played Stanley Ipkiss from the Mask animated series. So he's done a lot of great work. Just moving on, Barry Gordon was Donatello for pretty much every episode. He was also Bebop.
Yep.
And several Hanna-Barbera cartoons along the way. I also found he was the Nesquik Bunny in the TV commercials. Never made that connection before, that the Nesquik Bunny is Donatello, but I'll have to go back and check that out just to see if I can hear him in that. Another, fun voice actor there. Townsend Coleman, he was quite a bit as well in the show. Michelangelo, also Attila the Frog.
Awesome.
He was Usagi Yojimbo, and he also played Scott in Teen Wolf. He was Waldo and Where's Waldo. He was the Tick. Also found out he was the 7-Up spot in TV commercials. I didn't remember him talking, but
no, I didn't know he did
either. He did really fun work. Obviously, Michelangelo is my favorite character in that. But Shredder, of course, was Uncle Phil, James Avery, for most of the episodes, about 70% of the episodes, I'll say. But he also did a little bit of voice work along the way. He was the Junkyard Dog in Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling. He played Turbo in Rambo: Force of Freedom. And in the mid-90s, he was War Machine in the Iron Man and Spider-Man cartoons.
I do remember hearing that one. But
I had not...
funny how much of a surprise, I guess, like a secret that was hidden that he did that voice.
Right.
Because anytime anyone found out about that, they were just stunned. So...
and it's fun to watch. I've gone back and watched a few of the interviews, I think from some of the DVD sets on YouTube, and him talking about how, just breaking into Shredder was much more gratifying or something to, around the kids versus, being Uncle Phil, who was always the more parental, over the top, trying to keep the Fresh Prince in line. But it's fun to watch those interviews, and some of these shows even have little tidbits of them actually in the studio, which I think is really cool to watch.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Pat Fraley, he was a big part of the show. He was Krang. He was Baxter Stockman, Casey Jones. For a while, I think he was Mr. Vernon and Byrne at the Channel 6 studio there. Some of his other credits was Denver the Last Dinosaur, Brave Star, Scrooge McDuck, Jake in the Filmation Ghostbusters, and he was Ace in G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Long list for Pat Fraley.
I thought it was funny with Pat Fraley. He did Brave Star's voice, and then there's a Ninja Turtles kind of ripoff that I wrote about called Cowboys of Moo Mesa, where he played a cowboy doing the exact same voice as Brave Star. I can't believe they didn't even change it at all or anything. So,
well, if you do one cowboy voice, I guess it's hard to do more.
Go with what.
And then finally, before we get into our top 5 lists, we had Rene Jacobs, who played April O'Neil, and she just had a few little supporting voices in her voice acting career. She was in The Glow Friends Save Christmas, It's Punky Brewster, My Little Pony, and these several films called Rose Petal Place, which I've never heard of.
And there was only like 8 credits for her, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's very short for her, at least for her voice acting career.
I did see that she played April's mom, I guess, in the 2012 series or something like that. So I
did see that they kind of brought her back for a little cameo role, which is neat. So okay, well, that was just a little glimpse. Because it is such a great show, and it's the voice actors that really bring out these characters. When you're watching, you don't necessarily appreciate them much when you're a kid because you're just so into the characters and the toys and everything else, and you don't think that there's a voice behind them. But just over the last several years, I've gone to appreciate them a lot more, and the performances that they did during some of these shows, and lasting as long as the show did, just shows how well that they portrayed these characters and how much the kids love them to keep the show going for so many years. So I did want to keep those in there. So We are up to our number 5 choice, Brian, and as always, the guest has the floor first. So, what is your number 5 episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I'm going with the, I think it was the 5th episode, The Incredible Shrinking Turtles.
Oh, yes.
I love any show that has like the main character shrinking or growing or something like that. I mean, I know Dino Saucers had one where they all shrank, and you had Transformers that had mini bots that they shrank to Megatron. So any kind of episode that has to do with like miniaturization is pretty cool. But you know, it starts out with this really lame like Green Lantern ripoff, and Alien crashes, and they're like, he's like, oh, there's 3 pieces to this thing you need to collect, and then he dies. So, but I thought the best part of that episode was when the Shredder is spying on them, and then he confronts them after they find that first gem, and he beats the crap out of the turtles. It was the only time you really, well, one of the only times you ever really see it, but I mean, one swift kick or something, and he's got all the turtles on their back, steals the gem, and you know, it was pretty awesome just seeing Shredder be competent for once, since he hardly ever is. And it also ends with a really great Shredder and Splinter fight where he almost kills Splinter in a cheese pressing plant. So that was actually really cool. I mean, of course, the turtles get out and run away. You know, they escape with the... No, they don't get a gem. But I just thought it was really cool just seeing Shredder kick some butt, because he really needs it.
Yeah.
I mean, as goofy as that cartoon went, Shredder was just getting his ass handed to him every day. So,
yeah, it's always nice to see when the bad guys actually think, you know, and one of their plots actually comes close to happening. And just so many of these episodes are just bumbling, and even Krang, you know, the two between them two and Baxter Stockman. I don't know. I don't even know why sometimes that character was in there, but for, you know, just to be the gopher, you know, for most of those episodes. But I can't appreciate the shrinking type episodes. There is a shrinking episode of Mask too, where Mayhem, I think it's Mayhem that shrinks the team, and they have to get him back to real size, and all the vehicles are kind of shrunk too. So there's like a little mini battle while they're tiny. And I don't know. It seems like, you know, you think of G.I. Joe, where they the Christmas one where they shrink and they go inside the presents and they come out, you know, and they I don't know. Always seems to be one of those episodes around. So
I always like those kind of episodes when kids see the miniaturized thing and don't know that they're real, and it always made me, when I was a kid, be like, oh, it'd be so cool if this was actually real, and you know. But alas, that never happened.
Well, very good. I like that choice at number 5. My number 5 is the introduction of Casey Jones, Outlaw Hero, which was season 3, episode 23, I believe. And I don't know what it is about Casey Jones, but I always liked his character, I guess, more in the cartoon. He's more of that, I don't know, he almost sounds like he's doing a Clint Eastwood impression. I can't remember which voice actor it is that does Casey Jones, but I think it might be Pat Fraley. But this one I liked. You know, you just get to see him in his element, taking care of all these crooks and stuff. People, I think one person was like robbing a jewelry store, and trying to think what else at the beginning of that episode where he's just kicking butt, you know. And then he's even kind of rejecting the turtles. He calls them freaks, I think, at some point when he finally figures out it's them. And then you get Krang using, I think this is the one where he's using that huge, what did he call it? It's some machine, and he's like kind of terrorizing the whole city with it.
Like the Knuckle Buster or something like that.
Yeah, it was the Knuckle Buster. He comes up with that machine, and Casey and I think it's Mikey on the back of that thing is you know, trying to They had those bugs. That's right. So he's got those bugs that are going after all the technology.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then they throw the like remote control for the bugs inside the knuckle buster and basically make those bugs eat the thing to get rid of it. But I like at the end, Casey they're all kind of walking together, and I think one of them even talks to him, and they turn around, he's not there. It's it's kind of like the whole Batman gag.
Yeah.
Where Batman flees and you're sitting there talking to thin air, and they're all like, I bet we'll see him again. And he's kind of walking off into the sunset. Yeah, you'll see me again. I don't know. I always kind of liked his character, and he was okay in the first couple movies, or maybe he was just in the first movie. I can't remember if he was in both, but in the actor. Okay. I like the actor more than the newer ones, where he just seems like a total dork or like a jock. And this one, he's just more gruff and more rough around the edges. And you can see him just kind of walking down the street and people moving the other way,
I always liked the fact that in the cartoons, you never found out who he was either. He was just like, that's all he was, with the hockey mask wearing.
Right.
And that was it. And yeah, anytime they kind of show like the character, especially like in the latest movie, it just takes something away from Casey Jones. Especially when you find out that's his real name, and that's the only reason he went by it. When Casey Jones was named after the baseball player, the folk hero kind of thing. So yeah, much better in the cartoons.
I agree. Okay, what's your number 4 pick?
Number 4, I went with Leatherhead, Terror of the Swamp. And this is Leatherhead's inaugural episode. This actually has also an appearance from the punk frogs that showed up in season 2. You had Genghis and Attila and Napoleon and Rasputin. Yeah, they went back to the swamp that they were created in. I almost picked their first episode, but I like the fact, I love it when they throw a bunch of different characters together. So when they're fighting Leatherhead, they're in the swamp. He gets mutated by the same ooze that had mutated the frogs. And the turtles go down to help them because Leatherhead's kicked the frogs' butts. And then Shredder and Bebop and Rocksteady go down there for, I don't even know why they're there. But yeah, you have all of these different groups just coming together, fighting. Shredder in the end falls in the fountain of youth and turns into a baby. And then they escape. I love seeing the turtles and the frogs together as friends, but it just seemed really weird that Leatherhead would be able to kick for the frogs' butts when they almost beat up the turtles. Because the Shredder had trained them in ninjutsu in about 2 or 3 hours, with weapons that are definitely not ninja weapons. So I love that episode. It was a lot of fun just seeing all these different groups come together.
I got you. Yeah, the first episode made my list. I'll talk about that in a little bit with the punk frogs. But yeah, I get your point where there are several episodes where you get the neutrinos involved, and you get other kind of one-off characters that will come in, and then you get the full Shredder and Krang and the whole gang there. So yeah, I can appreciate that.
They did a really good job juggling a lot of these different characters in the episodes that they're in. So I got to give them a lot of credit for that.
Gotcha. Okay. Number 4 for me, I'm going with, excuse me. I'm going with season 4, episode 9, Planet of the Turtles. And this is the one where the turtles, they're like sitting back, they're watching this like intergalactic turtle wrestling on TV. And it's just so happens that Shredder and Krang are doing this, and they see this infomercial about this energy draining machine, and then like Shredder gets this idea to get this machine, and he kind of drags a couple of those turtle wrestlers that are like Hans and Franz, basically from SNL. That I don't. Again, with the turtles and having their kind of counterparts or their bizarro turtles, I guess you would say, in there. I always liked those kind of episodes where they kind of played off each other, and these turtles were bigger than them, so they can kind of they were almost intimidating. I think when they first met them, but the turtles get to go to this planet too, which is like pretty much why I put it on the list, because it's almost like Planet of the Apes, you know, when you you get there and everybody's a turtle, you know, everybody's so they kind of fit in, like this is their planet almost.
Awesome.
But you're going back and forth between the turtle planet and Earth, and the plot is kind of cheesy with this this machine and the announcer guy with the buy it now, and the guy, the MC from the infomercial, that he gets dragged around as well with these other Hans and Franz turtles. So it was the plot was kind of dumb, but I don't know. I just like them being on this planet of turtles and just interacting with them.
There's some place where they finally belong, kind of thing.
Yeah, basically like that, and getting to see. Well, I guess you get a little bit of that with some of the other episodes where they're on another planet or Dimension X or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I always like to go to different places other than just there's something going on Earth and they got to come out of the sewer and get Shredder. Yeah. This was a little bit different than that, so that's why I kind of put it on the list.
Very cool.
Okay, so number 3 for you, moving right along.
It's another episode with Leatherhead. This was season 3. I don't remember the episode number, but it's Leatherhead meets the Rat King, and that's pretty much all you need to know right there. But Leatherhead comes to New York. He's gonna get the turtles for what they did to him in the swamp. This was like, I don't know, just a handful of episodes after the other Leatherhead episode. Mm-hmm. And I love this cartoon, or this episode, because half the time the turtles aren't even in it, really. I mean, they're doing training exercises together, but they're not involved in the plot at all. Leatherhead goes down in the sewers, runs into the Rat King. Leatherhead, obviously a giant mutant alligator, thinks that rats can't do anything to him, but they knock a bunch of rafters onto his head, and he falls into a pit, and Rat King makes him his slave. And Rat King stole like a tanker full of rat poison and was going to turn it into mind control juice where he can control New York. And the turtles somehow find out. They go down there. They set the tanker to explode, and that's all they really do in the episode. I mean, I know April O'Neil's down there with him, and she gets lost. And the Rat King shows up here. Oh, wait, no, I was thinking of the wrong episode. But yeah, the turtles somehow get down there, blow up the stuff down there, and Leatherhead just says, I'm going to go back to the swamp. I don't like the city. And that was about it. I love the fact that the turtles, while they're doing their own thing, they just are not involved in this plot, like almost all.
Yeah. There was very little episodes that did not have like Shredder, the normal characters. So yeah, I see you get something out of the norm there. Is Leatherhead, I guess, one of your favorites?
No, not really. I mean, I love the fact he's this big alligator, and that Creole accent that he's got is great. But just those 2 episodes, I think the fact you have one episode where it's all the turtles and the frogs together fighting Leatherhead, and then you have another one where it's 2 bad guys fighting each other, and the turtles are just kind of stuck in the middle. Mm-hmm. I just really like the fact that you're seeing the enemies interact without the turtles being even a part of it at all. Gotcha. So, like I said, they did a great job juggling all these characters, and And this is another episode where they do a really good job with it.
Gotcha.
And
I
I
don't
wasn't a
remember that one specifically watching that one, but I do
yeah.
remember the Rat King on like well, he was on an earlier, like wasn't it like season maybe 2 or 3 when they introduced him?
He showed up in season 3, early season 3. I think I want to say like maybe 2 or 3 episodes before Casey Jones did.
Okay.
And he was he took control of Splinter, and
Right.
but beyond that, I don't remember even seeing him in all these episodes. So it's a surprise when I'm going back through them, and Rat King is fighting Leatherhead or just making little appearances like he will in my next episode. So yeah, it's really cool how to do that stuff.
Gotcha. All right. Well, my third choice, number 3 on the list, is the invasion of the Punk Frogs, their first appearance. Attila the Frog, Genghis Frog, Rasputin the Mad Frog, and Napoleon
Nice.
I don't know what I love the names, and yeah, so they did get trained a little bit too quick, and they were the menace that they were, just within that episode length. But I don't know. I still enjoyed them. I thought they were fun,
Oh yeah.
and you know, I love episodes. I love that it's set like in New York City. A lot of these, even though I just said I love when they go to other planets and stuff too. But just the backdrop of that, and during this episode, they have like the NYPD has like this anti-turtle task force, and it's just I don't know. It's like I like seeing the almost real elements of what would happen if you had all these turtles and frogs, roaming the streets of New York, and how the humans would react. But yeah, I don't know. I just like the characters and even the voices and everything.
Oh yeah, I always loved how laid back all of them were. Even as bad guys, when they're trying to fight the turtles, they're just like, "Oh man, I really like this place."
Yeah,
They were so much fun, and yeah, they were awesome. I love those guys.
and this was it seemed like this was kind of a trope too in the cartoons where you think of like the character Jetfire and Transformers, where he's essentially thinks he's a bad guy, thinks he's part of the Decepticons, and all that. His perspective gets changed. He's kind of manipulated by Starscream for a while, but then comes back around and actually helps the Autobots. And I think they do. Didn't they get him out of the ice at one point? And they introduced him, and he kind of sacrifices himself, and then they did bring him back, I think, at some point. But it's that same kind of, okay, I'm here and I'm being manipulated by the bad guys, but I finally figure out what's going on and jump onto the good guys' side,
Yeah.
So that's obviously what happens here with the Punk Frogs. But so that was my number 3. We got a couple left. So what's your number 2, Brian?
My number 2, another season 3 episode. I think all of mine were in season 3 because that's where they use the most amount of characters. I mean, you had Usagi Yojimbo show up, intro to all these other different characters, and mine is Return of the Fly. Baxter Stockman is my absolute favorite villain in that show. I actually had the figure when I was a kid. I didn't like him so much before he turned into a fly, but like his look as the Fly was just awesome. He was with Shredder a lot in the first and second season, but then when he became the Fly, he disappeared for like half a season for some reason. So this one, he comes back. He was actually out of phase with the rest of the universe to where he couldn't interact with anything. Some reason he decides at this point he's going to come back. He gets electrocuted by a lightning bolt that hits the Empire State Building, and that somehow resets him, and he comes back into our universe, and he immediately goes after the Turtles and Shredder, mostly Shredder. And then he ends up meeting Shredder, and Shredder tricks him into fighting the Turtles. Baxter's like, "Oh, you're not going to get me again," but then he pretty much does. He
Right.
he kidnaps April. April, when the Turtles are trying to find April, that's when the Rat King does come back and helps them find April, and then disappears. He's just like, "Oh, she's over that way," and that's it. That's his entire appearance. But then he fights Shredder, and Shredder's plan. I love that Shredder's plan here is just resources, like Technodrome's overheating, steal a bunch of water. I mean, not even like against the Turtles. Let's just steal a reservoir.
Yeah.
They, Rocksteady and Bebop have freeze rays, end up freezing everything. Baxter Stockman ends up getting frozen again and going back to the Technodrome. You think he's going to be gone forever again, just like he was last time, but he escapes, and that's the end of the episode. I mean, yeah, it was a really good episode. I love seeing Baxter Stockman back again because he's such an interesting character when he's the Fly, because he's kind of smart at sometimes, but kind of stupid. Like he doesn't realize what's going on with everything. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, he was definitely my favorite of all the villains. I liked him better than Bebop or Rocksteady and everything. So maybe it was because I had the toy. Maybe I had the toy because I liked him better. But whatever the case is, he was awesome.
Yeah, he definitely was not my favorite, but I do remember this episode, and it's funny how when you have a show that's 100 and whatever I said 90 episodes, you're going to end up playing off of other pop culture, movies and shows and stuff. So seeing him as kind of the Fly, transform into that, and it did make him a lot more interesting. Let me put it that way. when he became that, so I can definitely appreciate that one. Mm-hmm. And his I don't know. Like I said, he probably wasn't my least favorite character on the show. I'd probably tack that one on to April's roommate. Is it Irma? Oh my gosh, he just annoyed the crap out of me. But then again, she's in my favorite episode too. So it's funny how that happens, though, that, like you said, some of these characters, they develop, or something happens to them that makes them a little more interesting. And along the way through all those episodes, you can't just have the same character do the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Well, and maybe Shredder is kind of like that, but you got him coming up with different plans and stuff. But that was another element to Baxter Stockman that I did like. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that he didn't stay as Shredder's lackey once he came back. That was really nice that they kept him, with his own agenda and everything. Yeah,
it definitely made more sense. Okay, well, that was a good choice. My number 2 is season 3, episode 40, The Gang's All Here. And this is where Bebop and Rocksteady, they put on this, well, we'll call it an act, but it was a really bad act to get the turtles to eat these cookies. But these are not ordinary cookies, because they could turn them back to human. And it's fun that they... it's stupid they didn't realize this is Bebop and Rocksteady looking like a old man and old woman walking down the street. But it's they do figure out, I guess, at some point that what the cookie, I think Donatello actually like analyzes a cookie or something, and they figure out that there's like mutagen or anti-mutagen or something in there that will revert their characteristics back. And they did kind of play off this on, I think it was the second Michael Bay movie, where I think it's Raft is the one that's talking about what it would be like to be human and all that. Well, this episode I thought was really cool because Michelangelo is the one that eats it and turns into the kid, and he's kind of going back and forth between being the kid, being the turtle. And just about the time that he's ready to go kick butt is when he, turns back into the kid. And I don't know. I just thought it was fun seeing Michelangelo, what he would look like as a human, as a teenager, and I don't know. I love this episode. This is where April, she is also like infiltrating this gang for trying to get a story, basically. And and Michelangelo is the one that actually helps her to get out of the situation. But I don't know. I like this episode just for the fact that we got to see what one of the turtles actually would look like as a human.
Yeah, I really am glad. Well, with the other movie, it was Michelangelo that originally wanted to be human. Like, he was the one that was escaping out of the sewers doing a Halloween parade and was like, oh we belong up
right
here.
Yeah,
but it is pretty cool. I'm in that episode. Did they want to become human, or did it just happen and they
no I believe what happens is at the beginning, they're all, when they figure out about the turtle, they're figure out about the cookie, they're all like, no, stay away from it, we want to be turtles, we don't want to go back to being human, we don't want to mess with that. And Michelangelo's like, well, he just kind of goes his own way and decides to go ahead and eat it and see what happens.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was something that I didn't quite like in the last movie, because the first trilogy, there was always that whole "I love being a turtle" thing, and then for them to be like,
right,
I don't want to be a turtle anymore. It's like, that doesn't seem right. I mean, they've never been uncomfortable as turtles, or feeling out of place that much. So
yeah, and I did like how they kind of spun that back around, and even when I think that's the one at the end where they're all kind of hanging off the building and they are just kind of professing their love to each other, and it's maybe a little over the top, but they bring Raphael back around to where he's like, yeah, I this is my guys here. I don't need to be playing up that human angle. And but I think they did that a couple times in the cartoon series where they want to help, but they also kind of want to fit in too. So I think there was an episode, I think it was Raph, that maybe was on like a cruise ship with like a costume party, and he kind of goes as himself, and I can't remember the whole plot to that one. That one's kind of sticks out in my mind as, hey, let's kind of be ourselves amongst the humans and see what happens. It's kind of like the episode of Alf where he puts the zipper on and he's at the costume party, and I don't know. I kind of like that angle of it, but not that he was kind of rejecting being a turtle. And I don't think that's the way. I think Michelangelo was more curious in this episode than anything.
Yeah,
just to see what it would be like. So, but anyway, I threw that in there. I thought that was a really fun one, and I remembered watching as a kid too and liking the episode. So, awesome. All right, well, we're up to our number one. What did you choose as your favorite?
My favorite is actually Baxter Stockman's first episode as the Fly, Enter the Fly. This was season 2, I think, after he was stuck with Shredder for quite a while, when Krang wasn't really giving Shredder any help. He was in Dimension X. Shredder just had Baxter Stockman. Shredder had finally persuaded Krang to switch Baxter Stockman for Bebop and Rocksteady. So Baxter Stockman goes to Dimension X. He says he could help Krang. Krang's, he's a scientist. I can help you. And Krang's like, I'm already a scientist. Get rid of him. And Krang is going to disintegrate him. I mean, he's straight up going to murder this character. They go the route of the Fly with, the movies, where a Fly goes into the disintegration chamber with him and somehow mutates them into this big fly guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's out of Technodrome, goes after Shredder. He kind of doesn't know what's going on, but he goes after Shredder, and Shredder is unfortunately able to convince him, oh, the Turtles did that. I had nothing to do with it. So Baxter joins them to fight the Turtles. And the Turtles, or they issue a challenge to the Turtles just before them versus Shredder and Bebop, Rocksteady, and Baxter. And they were going to do that dimensional shift thing. And Baxter ends up getting stuck in it, and then that's when Baxter goes away forever. Well, for a long time. So I love, like I said, I love Baxter Stockman. I love the homage to the Fly movie, and how they went that route. And I love how brutal Krang is to just say, just kill him off. We don't need him. I mean, you don't ever see that. They banish people or something, but for him to just say, disintegrate him. We don't need him at all. That was just really, really crazy to see in a cartoon. So it was a lot of fun, that episode. I just wish that Baxter wasn't so easily played by Shredder there. But at least he gets his comeuppance a little later. So, yeah. Yeah, Baxter is easily my favorite guy in that show. I can't deny that.
Cool. Yeah. Like I said, I can appreciate that episode and the parallels to the Fly movie, and just like I said before, how they made him a little more menacing, a little more interesting than just the goofy sidekick scientist. You know? So I could appreciate that choice.
Cool.
Okay, I'm up to number 1 here myself. I chose season 2, episode 6, The Case of the Killer Pizzas. This one, obviously it played off of the love of pizza, by the Turtles. And the fact that they would, kind of come out and they take these, they're like eggs. I think it's Krang that sends the eggs, basically, here, use these, Shredder, to go get the Turtles. And they plop them in as like meatballs or toppings on the pizza, and they hold this like contest for free pizzas in the middle of Times Square or wherever it was.
Yeah.
And they lure the Turtles out because they can't resist getting some free pizza, probably led by Michelangelo. And they get the pizza. I think April actually gets one. Is it April?
Yeah, April and Irma. They do.
Yeah, they get the first one. And that's Irma tosses it in the microwave, and then this huge like xenomorph creature, they eventually become. And then I think they call the Turtles, and I think there's a couple kids. I can't remember whose kids they were or how they were involved in the story. They get the other 2 pizzas, pop them in the microwave, and then they're those crazy creatures come out. And I don't know. I love the whole plot to the thing. I like the creatures and just the Turtles, thinking about them battling together. But I don't know. It's kind of got to the point where I think Shredder and I think maybe even Baxter thought they could control them. I think maybe they had a device or something that kind of controlled them. And they and then ends up turning on them, so the creatures are just creatures, basically. They don't care who they're gonna get. But anyway, they figure out, I think at the end, how to get them back into the eggs. And I don't know. That was one I remember watching as a kid. And I think it was, I want to say at the end of that episode was kind of like one of the Turtles offers to get pizza or something. They're all like, no. Kind of a role reversal there. But anyway, that was my number 1 choice.
I love that we can take stuff from these, adult movies, R-rated movies and whatever, and put in the parodies in the cartoons. And I mean, and if a kid actually watched that stuff, they'd be traumatized, but they kidify them enough that it's perfect for kids to watch.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of a sneaky way to get, crazy stuff, almost like horror stuff, into kids' cartoons. And you think about just Krang and this blob, and I don't know. I didn't put a particular episode with Krang in here. I guess maybe the one with Casey Jones. He's more the forefront, being the one in the Knucklebuster terrorizing New York. I always thought it was fun to see him outside of the body. You plop him into a machine or something else, and then Shredder's always there to like catch him at the end when the machine blows up, put him back in the body.
Flies in his hands.
Yeah, Krang was always an interesting character to me, but they did put a bunch of other like one-off characters, it seems, into these episodes too that just seem to fit. Oh
yeah, I thought it was cool that the aliens in that episode, the killer pizza aliens, showed up in the Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, when they're surfing down the sewer and they would pop out. That was really cool seeing that them make that appearance.
Yes, I forgot about that. I do remember. I think it's the 4-player one, right?
Yeah.
The arcade game.
Yeah.
Because when we were in Tennessee at that arcade during my 40th birthday, I remember playing that and seeing those pop out. So yeah, that's neat how they added some of that stuff in beyond the cartoon.
Oh yeah, those are awesome. I just the fact that little things like that can make it into the games, even it shows that a lot of the people behind that stuff just loves what they were working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could throughout the whole show, you can just tell it was a labor of love for everybody. And even if you watch some of the behind the scenes stuff and some of the voice actors when they're talking about the show, it was just a class A time for everybody. And it really came out, even the writing and everything throughout the episode. Some of the plots were lame. Yeah, of course. You got 190 episodes, so you got to come up with something to get them, but for a lot was inserted into the show that just made it last as long as it did, So good stuff, man. That was really fun. I'm glad you were able to inspire me to get on and do a podcast like this and talk about the Turtles. And I'm going to invite everybody to go over there to Old School Evil and check out your posts from September. And you still got a few upcoming, so if you're listening to this here towards the end of the month, go check those out and check out the past ones from this month. And anything else you want to mention before we head out of here as far as the website or anything goes? You want to plug?
Thursday we'll have the Out of the Shadows review, and then on Friday, the last weekday of the month at least, we'll have a review of the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've only watched the first episode. It's some new direction they went, and I like some of the stuff, and some of the stuff I'm not too fond of. So I'll watch a couple more episodes, give it a little better chance. And then after that, I am taking a break because I have never worked this hard on the blog at all. It's free.
Yeah, I can relate. It ebbs and flows for me as well. You get charged, you get on a topic, you get something going with just that's different than what you normally do, and you just go full force into it, and then it's time to relax for a little bit, onto something else. Or
I don't think I can do this for a long, long time.
Well, I appreciate.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on here and giving me a chance to talk about it. And always
absolutely.
So it's fantastic that you reached out to me and invited me on to have this.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming back on again. And we do have some fun out there on the Twitter. Brian is Old School Evil with the underscores in the middle, if I remember right.
That's right.
Yeah. Come out there to Twitter, follow him, and I'm at RD80s. We have a group of like-minded retro and 80s type people that we interact with a lot over there on Twitter. It's really fun. Some of the topics we've been doing. We've been trying to, this week at least, start up something each day, and comment on and just have fun with it. Basically, no agenda. Just let's see what answers we can come up with to a fun question for everybody. So
yeah, just get some retro love out there.
Right, absolutely. So come join us over there on Twitter. And on behalf of Brian, thank you so much for listening to the Rediscover the 80s podcast and this episode of Rank 'em and the Turtles. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Cowabunga.